is to hear about a hard season in a person's life and how they found hope to navigate through it. Today, Evie shares the horror of physical and mental abuse to herself and her son, and the literal angel guiding her through it. She describes the heartache in following the court-ordered custody arrangement and the end of her son's abuse in the sudden death of his father. Her confidence in God's provision is inspiring. I'm so excited for you to meet my faith-filled friend, Evie.
When I married my first husband, this was a very, very tumultuous time in my life. He was a very powerful attorney, and I say was because he died a tragic death about 20 years ago.
Wow.
He was an abusive person, an abusive man, physically and mentally, to both me and our son, and I had to escape him. You don't take that lightly. I stood up in front of my entire congregation at the time, and I vowed to stay with this man forever and ever, amen, till death do us part. And so you don't wake up one day and say, okay, well, I'm just not liking this anymore. I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm kind of bored in my marriage. You just don't do that. You've made a vow, and so you keep to that particular vow. Unfortunately, my husband at the time did not want to keep to that vow, and so as a very powerful attorney, he dragged me through the mud when I decided to divorce him. And the reason that I decided to divorce him was because he was beating my son, and he was beating me. It was physical. It was mental, and I had to escape it. We did go to counseling for a very, very long time. He was great in the counselor's office, but on the drive home, it started again. So I made the decision to separate from him, and then through that separation, I decided I couldn't navigate the world with my son being hurt, and so I filed for divorce. Now, what you need to understand in the legal world, they will take you down the path of pain very readily. And so I found myself in court every week for 2 years. It took me 2 years to obtain my divorce.
Goodness.
Also, he was paying off judges, guardian ad litem, to act in his favor, which was breaking my heart. But I do want to tell you that when I escaped him and his abuse, God provided a place for me to go. It was unknown to everyone, including my parents. No one knew. My attorneys didn't know.
Wow.
I had to be away from him because he would come to get me. He threatened to come to get me and take Joel away, our son. In that place that I went, I didn't know the woman who had the place. When I drove up to the address, I was given the address of a safe place by my brother. And I went to this woman's home, and I drove up, and she said to me as I was driving up, she said, I knew you were coming today. She said, yesterday we had a bed delivered to your room where you will be staying. Just yesterday it showed up. And this is how I know that God is in control and God is very concerned about anyone's welfare. So I went into that house. I had a wonderful bed. There were toys there at the house for Joel that someone had dropped off the day before I arrived. As it turns out, they were all of Joel's favorite toys. Everything that we had left at the house when we escaped was there for him.
So how old was Joel at this time that you're
4.
going? Oh my.
So then, you have to go through the legal system. Attorneys are very protective of one another. So I could not find representation in Olympia. Everybody that I called up said, "Oh, sorry, this conversation never happened, and I cannot represent you against this man." So the Lord provided the name of an attorney who was in Tacoma. And so I went and visited with her, and she said, "Yes, I'll take the case." She was drugged through the mill by my former husband. And it all worked out because she was able to guide me through this procedure. There's a lot to it, and it took so long to get through. But we made it. We made it through. And here is another example of the provision of God in this. Every week, I'd have to go to the courthouse just because my ex-husband was causing me to. There was always something. There was, psychological evaluations that I had to take. I was always met by this wonderful clerk by the name of Angela. And so I said, "Angela, thank you for helping me." And she said, "If you have any questions, please ask them because I can see you're in here every week." And I said, "Okay." So we would have conversation, and she would counsel me through all of this paperwork. And so one day I went in there and she said, "Oh my goodness, let's stand over here because there's a big line of people that are bringing in their paperwork and I want to counsel with you." So we counseled, and then I was like, "Thank you so much. I didn't know that I needed to do this. I needed to do that." And she said, "Okay, absolutely. I'm so happy to help you." Well, one week I went in there. It was getting toward the end of the divorce proceedings. And I went in on my usual day that I was turning in the paperwork. And suddenly I walk in there and there's someone else. There's not Angela. There's somebody else. And so I said to this person behind the counter, I said, "Is Angela here?" And they looked at me really super weird. And I said, "Angela, what does she look like?" And I described this very petite brunette woman who had been helping me through all of this. They didn't know of her. And they said, "Well, we're sorry, but she doesn't work here. There's nobody by that name here in the courthouse." I've had my experiences with God sent someone, someone
that looked like a clerk.
Human being that looked like a clerk, dressed appropriately, just perfect. And she helped me so much. So I was able to get all of my paperwork in.
That is wild.
And that was very, very encouraging as you're going through this kind of experience. All of the attorneys involved in this actually commented to me that people who had done lesser would be in jail. He should have been in jail. This entire situation speaks to the provision of God and the strength of God, giving me that strength because on my own, I would never have been able to do it. There was restraining orders out. He was not allowed to take Joel out of the state, but he did it anyway. He was not allowed to come to my home. Absolutely not. We had to do during the child custody, shared custody. We had to do it at a place that was neutral. And so we did that, and that was fine. I couldn't have him at my home. And Joel is suffering through this whole thing. He's losing weight. Joel was telling me that he wasn't being fed, and that he couldn't use materials in the home, like even the smallest thing like toilet paper, that was being controlled. He could only use this amount of toilet paper or not amount of toilet paper. And so it came to the point where Joel would throw himself onto the floor before a visit, and he would ball up into the fetal position. He goes, "Mommy, don't send me. Don't send me. Do not send me. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it." And yet the court system is saying, "You have to do it. You have to do it." And so just praying with my son, who's laying in a ball on the floor, to get him to go, we would pray together, and that would calm him down, and he would go. But he would come back black and blue. He would come back weighing pounds less on a weekend, that he wasn't being fed. He was so stressed that it was crazy sauce. And so my dear mother, who is a prayer warrior and a Just lovely, lovely woman. She's passed. Anyway, she got really angry with God because she said, this is her grandson.
Yeah.
And she would go on these walks, her prayer walks. And she said, I just screamed out to God. I said, when are you going to stop this?
Yeah.
Just like David in the Psalms. When are you going to rescue my daughter and my grandson?
Yeah.
And she said, please, please, you've got to do something. And I was praying that as well. I just didn't think it was going to happen the way that it happened. And so she had prayed that, and Paul had picked up Joel for a visitation, and they were going down to Long Beach down there. And Joel didn't want to go. He went very unwillingly, and they went to Long Beach.
Now, let me stop you. How old
Sure.
is Joel now? This has been going on.
It's going on. He's 10 years old.
Okay.
He's 10 years old.
Okay.
So we battled, in custody. We battled in mediation. It was just a battle, but God gave me the strength to continue on. And it was very interesting, Audra, because even going through all of this thing, the church that I was attending, my friends there said they had no idea that I was going through such turmoil. Because it's important. I wasn't not sharing, but it's also important to maintain the joy of the Lord, because that was my strength.
Yeah.
That was my strength.
Yeah. Well, and you're in the middle in these lawsuits. And so you probably have to be really careful not to share. You don't want to mess up the chance of having custody, full custody.
No, that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
My former husband did put a gag order on me that I could not speak about any of it. But I didn't, that there was so much going on. It would take a long time to tell you.
This would be a 3-hour
Yes, it would
episode.
be. Maybe this is part one.
So Joel is now 10 years old. He's going to Long Beach with his dad.
On
you
weekend
and your
visitation.
mom have been saying, please, please, please stop this madness.
Help.
Okay.
Help. Okay, that's what we're praying. Joel is gone. I'm working. It was the beginning of my former husband's 6-week stint in the summertime. I'm going to work, and I get a telephone call from my former husband's new wife at the office. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I look at my phone and I go, I was in the lab at the office, and I went, she's never called me before. I think I'm going to pick up this phone call. Mm-hmm. So I pick it up, and she says, Evelina. And I said, yes. Mary. She said, I have to tell you something. She said, there's been an accident at Long Beach. And you just stop. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And she said, Joel's fine. Joel's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. But Paul has drowned. And he's on life support right now. And he went out into the ocean to save Joel. And unfortunately, he drowned, and they had to spend a lot of time finding him. He's on life support. He does have a heartbeat, but Evelina, he's brain dead. And I'm asking you if you think it would be all right if I pulled the plug. And I'm thinking, okay, they're newly married. She doesn't know me. I just met her. And she's asking me, as his former wife, if it would be all right to pull the plug. And I said, Mary, what do you think? She's a physician. And she said, well, saltwater drownings are the worst. It just eats your brain tissue away.
Really?
Yeah. And I said, okay. And she said, I don't think Paul would like to be on life support in a vegetative state. I said, okay, Mary, absolutely, I agree with you. It's okay to pull the plug. And so together we made that decision, and they removed life support from him, and he passed away there at the hospital. So there it was, Audra. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't want that for Paul. I was thinking the Lord would, that we could have some kind of a civil relationship. Mm-hmm. But that was not God's plan. And so I do know in my heart of hearts that he made a decision to follow Christ because he had made a commitment to Christ when we were together. Mm-hmm. But, that was all kind of cloudy. And so I do know in my heart of hearts that he recommitted his life to God in those 3 minutes it takes to drown. Because as you are dying, that, and especially drowning, that you have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. And so your life will flash before your eyes. Wow. And I know that he did that because God gave me a dream later on, and I can talk to you about that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. That was his untimely death. Now, Joel floated out to sea a mile offshore, and the Coast Guard sent helicopters and rescue divers in to rescue him. Wow. And so I asked Joel when I retrieved him, I said, what was happening out there? And he said, well, Mom, he said, I took those swim lessons, and he said that the teacher told me that I just needed to float. You just need to float out there and someone will come and get you. Stay calm and float. And I said, okay. I said, so you did that? And he said, yes, I floated. And then suddenly there was a diver, and he came and he grabbed me and brought me to shore. And there are pictures in the newspaper that show the diver bringing him to shore. So it was an incredible experience. Wow. He said, Mom, I just prayed that the Lord would send someone to save me. Mm-hmm. He said, Mom, I wanted to be saved so I could see your sweet face again. And I was like, okay.
How long do they think he was out there floating?
Well, his cousin was out in the water with him. He's an older cousin.
Okay.
And so that older cousin actually made his way when he saw that Paul was dying and that Joel was floating out. He made his way to shore, asked somebody for a cell phone, called 911, and that's what got everything going. Wow. So it was probably there was a riptide. That's what the big thing was.
So dangerous.
So dangerous. And so he actually was floating out there for probably about 10 minutes till they got to him.
Oh, wow.
He was 1.5 miles offshore.
Yeah. Wow. Thank goodness they weren't out there alone.
Yes,
just
right.
Joel and his dad. Wow. Yep. Okay, so the dream.
The dream. You want to hear about the dream?
I do, yeah.
Yes. So here is another example of how the Lord, when you inquire of wisdom from him, what he provides. And this was so remarkable. Joel was very, very concerned about whether or not his dad made it to heaven. And I told Joel, I said, you know what? I believe that he did. Well, Mom, would you please ask the Lord? I need to know. I need to know this. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I will ask him. It says in the word that we can inquire of the Lord and he will give us a dream. Mm. I asked for a dream. Mm. And so I went to bed that night. The Lord provided a dream. So in the dream, I'm standing in front of beautiful rolling hills with the greenest grass you've ever seen. And there is a beautiful, gentle breeze blowing. And you can see that it's a beautiful, gentle breeze blowing because the grass is just blowing. It's just blowing. And the sky is the bluest sky I've ever seen, cloudless. And suddenly, I'm just standing there and I'm thinking, wow, this is really a beautiful place, right? And here comes Paul over the hill in white. He's wearing white and he's coming over the hill. And I'm thinking to myself, this is really him. This is him. Thank you, Lord. This is him. I get to see him. And right down to his beautiful smile and the most beautiful teeth.
Speaking as someone who works in the dentistry, are you a hygienist?
I am.
Oh,
yeah. Down to his beautiful smile, his beautiful teeth. He's perfected. He had the biggest brown eyes and the longest eyelashes, Middle Eastern. He had the beautiful, beautiful brown eyes and eyelashes. And I look at him and he looks at me and he's not really talking. He's just smiling. So I'm hearing him talk, but he's not, his lips aren't moving. He's just smiling. He says to me, I'm all right. Tell Joel I'm all right. And I said, okay, I will tell Joel that. Thank you so much. He looked at me and he said, Evelina, can I hug you? From an abused woman's point of view, I didn't want anybody touching me, and particularly not him.
Yeah.
But realizing that he is now perfected, I said, yes, I would love that. So he gave me a nice hug, and then he walked up over the hill. Breeze is blowing, grass is going, his white robe is just, fluttering, and he was gone, and the dream stopped.
Wow.
And so I thanked the Lord for that immediately. I said, thank you for that, because that's going to help Joel. So I relayed the dream to Joel, and it was good.
Another thing is your brother found the safe place. So you were confiding in a few key people who knew how dangerous it was.
Audra, no. I was not confiding in anyone at that time that I made my escape, because Paul threatened to kill me if I shared anything. Keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, I'll kill Joel or I'll kill you.
So how did it come about that your brother gave you this address or phone number of this safe place?
Another
a God thing.
Another
Of course.
God glimmer, right? He actually called me up. He was dating this woman, and I had met her, the owner of the safe house. And I didn't know that they were really involved, but I had met her briefly. I would not have been able to choose her in a lineup or anything. He just called me one day at home, and he said, "Hey, I just checking in to see how you're doing. How are you? We haven't talked for a while." And I said, "I'm doing okay," because you don't want to share anything that might get you killed. And so Michael and I were talking, and he's my youngest brother. I just love him. And anyway, he said, Ev, I don't even know why I'm giving you this information, but if you need someplace to go, here's the address. And I know you don't know this woman. I can't even remember her name anymore. This would be a place for you to just go and relax. She's quite lovely. I don't know why I'm giving you this information. And I've heard that so many times from various people. God sent people. Yeah. He provided a safe place. He provided food. He provided funds. It's just amazing in getting away from Paul. Everything that was provided.
Wow. That's amazing.
Paul had we had a fishing fleet up in Alaska, and he would leave for 6 weeks every summer to go and fish in Alaska. And so when he left me with no money, no food, no way to get anything, and then told me that, you don't say anything to anybody or I'll kill you. And I said, okay, Lord, the Lord will provide. I was out weeding my flower beds. You just do things in order to keep busy. And so I'm weeding my flower beds, and I'm singing and, praising the Lord and just doing that. Joel's taking a nap, and so it was just great. So I ended up weeding my neighbor's flower bed just because I lost track of time and space and where I was, and so I weeded this flower bed.
Accident?
It was an accident.
Oh my goodness!
And so anyway, the next day I get a knock on the door, and it's my neighbor, and my neighbor said, "Oh, thank you so much for weeding my flower beds. It looks so nice. Your flower beds are like perfect. I have always wanted to get my flower beds to look like your flower beds." And I said, "Well, it's just something that I did. I actually did it by accident because I was thinking about other things."
Yeah.
The neighbor came over and he said, "You know what? I want to pay you for that." And I said, "No, you don't. I did it by accident, and I don't want to be paid." And he said, "No, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I think you need this." And he gave me $35. I thought I was the most wealthy woman in the world because Joel and I had been subsisting on pasta noodles that were in the house spaghetti and sauce made from ketchup.
Oh.
I was able to buy food.
Wow. You talk about these sparkle God moments, and you saw him and he showed up. What about the people who are listening who haven't seen those?
Oh, they're there. They are there. They are there. They're in the air you're breathing because God is our breath, right?
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit is our breath. They are there. Just look for them.
It's just interesting that God keeps being merciful even when we don't thank him.
It's Audra. It's always ever him.
Yeah.
He's sovereign over everything.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our breath, the things just, they come in. I know it's God because he is faithful to me. He says in his word that he loves me with an everlasting love, that he knows me intimately. All of these things, he knows exactly what I need, when I need it. Even this next breath I'm taking or this word that I'm speaking, he is in charge of it. Every day.
You knew it was angels. You knew it was
every day,
visions.
every day. In some way, there was something glimmering every day.